Hey, hello. Welcome back, everyone. It's back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 150, Black Car Talk. Um, I am running this hangout tonight by myself, so we'll see if any co-facilitators decide to join. There is a docket in the description beneath the video. Please follow it. Hit the like button as you come in, as well as share this video as well. So, and let me get started with the first item on the docket. First item on the docket is a presentation by Waymo's chief scientist um, at an MIT meeting. So this talking about self-driving cars here. This is actually a very very good video. It's only an hour long. You don't have to it's not a 10-hour video or anything like that, but it's actually giving you a lot of information, basically a nano degree in self-driving cars. If you watch it a few times, you're going to get a lot of notes out of it, breaking down the whole entire um, kit and caboodles from start to finish on how self-driving cars work, what's needed, what's the preparation stages, what kind of languages it uses, what kind of architecture it uses, and a demonstration on how a self-driving car would work long term into the future, utilizing artificial intelligence, utilizing um, machine learning, visualization, and other factors such as lidar. So definitely something to pay attention to. Let me see if I can pull up the next. All right. So next item on the docket is from Forbes.com. 5 autonomous car trends everyone should know about in 2019. Oh, you got to be kidding me with this pop up. Just a few. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Just a few short years ago, the idea of driving themselves on our streets seemed like a crazy sci-fi fantasy. However, the rapid advances in machine learning and autonomous technology in recent years means it's now close to becoming a reality. Every major automobile manufacturer is heavily investing in self-driving technology. In 2018, saw many pilot schemes taken on to highway and city roads. By the end of 2019, we may we may not all be chauffeured around by town by robots as we sit around in the back and catch up with our Facebook friends, but but we we will certainly be significantly closer than we are today. Here are the 5 predictions for how that's likely to come about. First, level 5 autonomous cars. Actually, give me 1 second. Let me make sure I send this out. First, level 5 autonomous cars. Progress towards fully autonomous cars has been split into 5 stages. From level 1, which refers to driver assistance functions common in many new vehicles, to level 5, fully self-driving vehicles capable of operating on or off-road with no human interaction required whatsoever. Level 5 autonomy doesn't exist yet, but manufacturers including Honda, Renault, BMW, and Toyota have said they hope to put fully autonomous cars into production by 2020, meaning we could expect to see trials and pilots taking place this year. Of course, things don't go things don't always go according to plan. Tesla, for example, initially said it expected their cars to be fully autonomous by 2017. But with billions of dollars being poured into research and development by some of the world's most technologically adept companies, 2019 could be the year we see the first entirely autonomous cars start to appear on our streets. Fully autonomous car, fully autonomous coast-to-coast trip. 2015 saw an Audi SQ5 engineered by Delphi make the 3,400-mile trip from San Francisco to New York. However, a human co-pilot took over the controls on several occasions for safety reasons. At the end of 2018, a former Google engineer completed a coast-to-coast journey in a Level 2 autonomous vehicle, apparently without taking control of the vehicle. However, cars at this level of automation still require a human to be able to take control. And Tesla has delayed their own attempt several times after initially stating that their technology was capable of defeat in 2016, citing safety concerns. The first manufacturer to complete a totally unassisted trip would certainly win kudos. And with the race to bring these vehicles to our streets heating up, could 2019 finally be the year we see it happen? Autonomous trucking becomes a reality. Of course, as well as ferrying us around, autonomous driving promises to revolutionize the haulage and logistics industry. With the majority of their driving done on straight, relatively easy to navigate highways, trucks and HGVs are prime candidates for automation. And of course, safety is another area that will benefit with the long haul drivers subject to strict regulations governing the number of hours they can spend behind the wheel due to the dangers of fatigue and concentration loss. Next year, we'll see the launch of Mercedes-Benz AROX or AROX semi-autonomous trucks, which will effectively drive themselves on highways while allowing drivers to step in and take control in urban environments where higher precision driving is needed. The ARC system is designed to be used by a convoy of trucks with a human piloted vehicle taking the lead and autonomous vehicles following in its path. It will operate on journeys involving predefined routes, so route finding is done manually, but autonomous driving systems are capable of recognizing and avoiding hazards in their path, as well as reacting to unexpected behavior from other road users. Autonomous ride sharing hits the mainstream. If you're thinking that the future involves owning your own self-driving car, you may be missing the point. According to several of the big players in the autonomous driving game, the idea is that it will no longer be necessary for the majority to own their car. A car is often one of the most expensive purchases a family or an individual will make, and is ob- object and is an object which spends 90% of the time sitting in the driveway or parking lot not being used, particularly for those of us living in urban areas. Ride sharing may be the future of transport. At least that's the thinking behind the autonomous projects and development by several major automobile and tech companies today. Google spinoff Waymo launches self-driving taxi service in a limited way on the streets of Phoenix, Arizona in 2018. And if things go well, we can expect to see it extended to other areas. Others, including Ford, GM, and Uber, are expected to unveil similar services in the near future. If all goes according to plan, if all goes according to plan, 2019 could be the year we call for a taxi and a vehicle turns up with no one sitting in the driver's seat. More autonomous tech and non-autonomous cars. While autonomous cars are not entirely, may not be entirely ready to fully take over from their manually driven predecessors in 2019, it's certain that we will see a lot of the technology that will eventually enable cars to drive themselves in more run-of-the-mill vehicles. In particular, driver's assistance features such as automatic braking, acceleration, and lane switching technologies will be increasingly made available in everyday automobiles. Additionally, features which take advantage of the advanced artificial intelligence systems, such as augmented reality and in-car virtual assistance, which makes autonomous driving possible, will become increasingly common throughout 2019. This is um this is actually a primer, similar to the video that is in the docket from the first item on the docket. But this is actually a primer, and what's happening here is that there's a trickle down effect of autonomous features being brought down to the mainstream of vehicles that are not autonomous. And a lot of those features are going to help spur the growth of autonomous technology into the level 5 vehicles, the level 4 vehicles, because as supply supply chain methods or supply chain costs actually comes down as more non-autonomous vehicles adopt those features, because in small quantities, autonomous features or autonomous parts, for that matter, in design is actually very expensive. But if you distribute it across a wider spectrum of applications, such as non-autonomous cars, then what happens is the the cost to produce actually becomes lower. So that's what's going on in this article and what they're discussing in the 5 stages of autonomous cars. And the idea of owning a vehicle doesn't even matter, because we covered an article maybe a few weeks ago talking about how these under 30 demographic of people, which you would call millennials, actually can't afford to buy these vehicles anymore. So these vehicles are actually not being, not being fully acquired by wealthy individuals. It's actually these millennials who or under 30 class who can't afford these vehicles, but actually need these vehicles for transportation, and autonomous vehicles being able to come pick up that demographic of people actually makes more sense. It actually puts metro busing or rapid transit systems somewhat out of in competition. Basically, it's in competition with those vehicles or those modes of transportation. Ride sharing is actually a form of transportation. It's actually a medium transportation class now. All right, let me go to the next item on the docket. All right, this one is from Bloomberg.com. Self-driving cars might kill auto insurance as we know it. Without humans to cause accidents, 90% of risk is removed. Insurance Insurers are scrambling to prepare. venture capitalists and entrepreneurs company and premium would rise. They quoted me $10,000 a year, Pete recalled. For all the concern over accidents involving driverless cars, including its limited self-driving autopilot mode, it's easy to forget one of the supposed virtues of autonomous vehicles. They will make the road safer. A sophisticated array of LiDAR, radar, and cameras is expected to be more adept at detecting trouble than our mortal eyes and ears. And computers never get drunk, check Tinder, or fall asleep at the wheel. Pete, 40, previously started a company called Hixme, a provider of group health insurance. Now he wanted to launch a firm specializing in insurance for vehicles with automated driving modes and eventually fully autonomous cars. His experience with the insurer of his old fashioned non driverless car only confirmed the need. Wait, what? When the underwriters and actuaries price insurance on a new type of risk, Pete said they charge more because they don't have enough data. With so much, with so few Model X on the road, its safety record was at best opaque. But Tesla Incorporated and other car makers collect reams of data on their vehicles' operation to improve automation. He said he realized, quote, we can get large amounts of data across entire fleets and be able to underwrite without having to wait for years of data from accidents that as after they happen. Very good point. It also enables an insurer to cut premiums for drivers the more they engage on autonomous driving. On January 30th, Pete announced the creation of Avenue Avenue with $5 million in seed funding led by Los Angeles Crosscut Ventures. Its insurance product will monitor drivers' use of autonomous features on cars made by companies including Tesla, Nissan, Ford, and Cadillac, determining discounts based on how the feature is used. Avenue has agreements with most manufacturers and is working to tie up the rest, Pete said, allowing it to access driving data once a customer gives it permission. Deloitte, in its 2019 Insurance Outlook report, saw this coming. Quote, the rise of connectivity has generated a massive amount of real-time data and turned the insurer's relationship with policyholders from static and transactional to dynamic and interactive. NFU said it expects to be writing policies later this year in select states. The transition points to a larger existential crisis for the multi-billion-dollar car insurance industry. If nobody's driving, why do we need auto insurance? Premiums and company revenue are based on a driver's likelihood of being in an accident, as well as actual crash rates. With more than 90% of the accidents caused by human error, taking the driver out of the equation is going to mean big changes for insurers. Quote, this comes up in every strategic conversation, said Michelle Cross, Senior Managing Director in Accenture's Insurance Client Service Group. The major carriers are very focused on understanding the technology behind automation and what opportunities are available for them. Cross Group, with research from the Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey, published a report in 2017 forecasting trouble for insurers as automation becomes more widespread. Premiums could drop by 12.5% of the total market by 2035, the authors found. And while new insurance product lines centered on autonomous vehicles will offset some of the loss, Decline in premium revenue will eventually outpace gains. The good news for the industry is that it has time. Stevens estimates that by 2035, there will be only 23 million autonomous vehicles on the American roads, less than 10% of today's total. And as of now, the technology required for autonomous features is extremely expensive to prepare, meaning premiums will initially rise as more cars featuring them roll off dealers' lots. Quote, when you think of all these sensors and calibration, a little fender bender could be much more costly proposition, said David Ross Keefe, an assistant professor of system dynamics at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. As automation reaches level 4 and 5 fully autonomous capability with the option for a human driver to take over, and fully autonomous with no human involvement, respectively, insurance is going to change dramatically. Quote, it's foreseeable that insurance is much less consumer facing industry in the future, Keith said. That's because the driver won't be the risky part. Liability is likely to migrate from the individual to the manufacturer and the licensors of the software and the drivers of and drives the AV autonomous vehicle, said Rodney Parker, an associate professor of operations management at Indiana University. Accenture report agreed. That means insurers will be selling more policies to companies and fewer to drivers. Car makers and suppliers of communication systems, software, and sensors are going to be on the hook for the failure of the product rather than drivers paying for not checking their blind spot. More broadly, the nature of the risk itself is going to change, said Yuan, a professor at Northwestern University. With human drivers, uncertainty is randomness and random chances follow a normal distribution. If the risk is in faulty software or sensors, it becomes more systematic. Nationwide is one insurance company that started thinking about this problem. Drivers today are rated based on factors including sex, age, and driving history. If we're getting data from the vehicle, the rating changes dramatically. The rating changes dramatically and gets very complex, said Teresa Sean, Associate Vice President for Product Development. Insurers are already insurers are already in the data management business, of course, but going to be even bigger muscle than it's going to be even bigger muscle that we have to flex. Like Nationwide, Allstate is aggressively hiring experts in big data analytics, according to the president of service business, Don Thivigan. Determining who's at fault when something goes wrong could get thorny in this new world. If the lidar goes on the blink, is that the fault of the car maker or the supplier of the lidar? What if the driver failed to get the latest firmware update? So now, so now it's his fault. If a Cadillac with a Super Cruise loses its internet connection, is that on the General Motors or Verizon? What if the car gets hacked and redirected to a thief's lot? What if a municipal infrastructure managing traffic flow loses its data? As a society, we will have to figure out who's liable for the different things, and that will determine who's required to insure against what risk, said MIT's Keith Young of Northwestern sees it as a public policy problem be best addressed in government. Yet these are the opportunities for for the legacy insurance companies the quickest to adapt, as well as startups like Avenue. Policies that protect products will become more widespread, while mobility as a service, Keith said, will mean we'll want to ensure our safety as a passenger as well. Without a driver, there's no driver to insure. Nationwide thinks the smoothest road ahead will be one of which insurers and automakers each have a hand on the wheel. We're working to build a deeper relationship with car manufacturers, Sean said. Perhaps this means mergers on the horizon between insurers and automakers. Cross of Accucenture said those conversations are going on as we speak. Amazing. There's an app called Lemonade, and I think one of our co-facilitators, Complex Design, talks about this a lot. This allows artificial intelligence to provide insurances, or allows insurance companies to use artificial intelligence. So Lemonade is an actual working product, and everything's a work in progress, but it's a work in product as it is right now. But the point that I'm making here is that if there's no driver to insure, then what happens here is that you'll probably need some form of passenger insurance to ensure that the passenger actually is covered if there's no driver liable. The driver liable would actually be the software, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning, the auto manufacturer, the uh, mechanic, and so on and so forth. A there's a distribution of stakeholders involved in that vehicle. So there would have to be a chain of custody that takes place. But with lack of a driver and insurance companies not being able to adapt quickly enough, then what's going to happen here is that people may have to provide their own insurance as drivers just to take care of themselves and just to cover themselves, I should say. But there's a lot of jobs that's going to come out of that because you have data science, data analytics, um, cloud computing, wireless, Wi-Fi, 5G, legacy 4G, uh, as well as the manufacturing of sensors now. So now all these sensors that need to be manufactured for all these vehicles and all these little parts and on the vehicle actually have to be taken into consideration of the supply chain aspect of the vehicle. All right, let me get to the next article. All right, next one is from MarketWatch.com. Google's Waymo holds on to its driverless car lead. Alphabet's Alphabet Incorporated's Waymo keeps its lead in the driverless cars in California, but General Motors, Cruise, and startups such as Zoox Incorporated are closing the gap. California's DMV this week released 2018 data on autonomous car permit holders and the miles they've driven, saying autonomous vehicles with a safety driver or those ready to intervene as needed in a test driverless vehicle drove 2 million miles on public roads, 4 times more than 2017's 507,000 miles driven. California requires every company conducting driverless car tests on its public roads to report every January their prior year monthly miles driven and disengagements, or instances where human drivers had to take control of the driverless car to avoid incidents or to test a feature. Apple Incorporated In its first year as California permit holder, was third in miles tested, but dead last in disengagements. It tests cars autonomous vehicle mode was interrupted every 1 mile. Analysts by uh, analysts at yeah, this is poorly written, said in a Thursday note after crunching the California DMV data. The Jeffries analysts, as well as analysts at ISI Evercore, calculated that Waymo's cars drove 11,000 miles in California before a disengagement. GM Cruise and startup Zoox have driven 5,000 miles and 2,000 miles per disengagement, and have done so in a harder environment. San Francisco proper, with its obstacle course like busy and hilly streets dotted with bikes and scooters, and the inevitable jaywalker. Zeus came in fifth in terms of overall miles driven, behind Aurora Innovation Incorporated, a startup that last week said it raised more than $530 million from the likes of Amazon. Venture firm Sequoia Capital and funds such as T. Rowe Price valuing Aurora at more than $2 billion. Waymo in October was granted the first permit to test autonomous cars in California without a driver behind the wheel. The state regulations to allow testing without any safety driver took effect in April. Despite the jump in miles driven, ISI core analysts noted the linear rather than the needed exponential progression to get AVs at least 10 times better than a human driver. Waymo extrapolating from the 5 prior years of data would still be far off that goal by 2026, the analyst said. A typical dumb human driver goes between 250,000 to 500,000 miles on average without a crash, and some 75 million miles before a crash resulting in a death. The industry has ways to go before hitting the stated goal of AV companies targeting 10 to 100 times better performance than a human, they said. This is all preliminary information because it's too early to tell, you know, what an autonomous car is going to do unless it's actually in full production, because there's not a lot of permits available, and there's only so many places that it can drive, and everything's still in everything's still in beta. So unless all 50 states, or at least 48 states, decide to allow for autonomous permits to be granted, you won't really know what the capabilities are of these vehicles until that happens. For right now, there's a lot of bureaucratic red tape. Introducing AVS, an open standard for autonomous vehicle visualization from Uber. This one is from Uber.com. I just want to show this image so people get an idea of what they're looking at. These are objects within um, the vehicle sensory, such as the LiDAR and other vehicle sensors that allow it to map out its driving path for the road. Understanding what autonomous vehicles perceive as they navigate urban environments is essential to developing these systems that will make them operate safely. And just as we have standards for street signs and traffic infrastructure to help human drivers, autonomous vehicle developers would be well served by a standard visualization platform to represent input from the senses, image classification, motion in, inference, never seen that before, and all other techniques used to build an accurate image of the immediate environment. As we've written before, the Advanced Technologies Group (ATG) and visualizations team at Uber leverage web-based visualization technologies to interpret these sensors and algorithmic derived worlds in order to support an ever-growing pool of autonomous use cases. Today, we're excited to open source the redesigned and expanded autonomous visualization system, a new way for the industry to understand and share its data. This is just a GIF of what AVS does. It's actually really cool. AVS is a new standard for describing and visualizing autonomous vehicle perception, motion, and planning data, offering a powerful web-based toolkit to build applications for exploring, interacting, and most critically, making important development decisions with that data. As a standalone, standardized visualization layer, AVS frees developers from having to build custom visualization software for their autonomous vehicles. With AVS abstract and visualization, developers can focus on core autonomy capabilities for drive systems, remote assistance, mapping, and simulation. The need for unified visualization. A wide variety of organizations, including technology companies, foundations, research institutions, original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, and startups are tackling the challenges of autonomous driving. Visualization tools which display the autonomous vehicles perceiving their environments are crucial for developing safe driving systems. The requirements for these tools are generally originate close to the hardware and sensor stack and revolve around online or offline playback for autonomy system data log data. As platforms mature, new use cases emerge around triage, simulation, mapping, safety, and image collection and labeling. The path to production requires a whole new layer of tooling and infrastructure around monitoring, remote assistance, and support. In addition to rapidly evolving requirements, autonomy engineers are often forced to learn complex computer graphics and data visualization techniques in order to deliver effective tooling solutions. The lack of visualization standard has resulted in engineers assembling custom tools around ready-made technologies and frameworks in order to deliver solutions quickly. However, in our experience, these attempts at developing tools are around disparate, off-the-shelf components lead to systems that are challenging to maintain, inflexible, and generally not cohesive enough to form a solid foundation for a platform. We are sharing AVS broader autonomous community with the broader autonomous community in the hope that collaboration across the industry will unlock advancement, define a standard, and lead to safer and more efficient transport, transportation solutions for everyone. This is really not so much of a long. It's not a long article. It's more about a breakdown of what AVS actually does. I suggest everybody actually read this. This is actually really good stuff. All right, this one is from CNBC.com. Elon Musk says the tech is mind-bogglingly stupid, but hydrogen cars may yet threaten Tesla. Tesla and its competitors in the battery-powered electric vehicle market dominate debate over who will control the future of cars. But there's another kind of green transportation technology making inroads in the United States, and it is based on the most abundant resource in the universe. Fuel cell electric vehicles, FCEVs, combine hydrogen stored in a tank with oxygen from the air to produce electricity, with water vapor as the byproduct. Unlike the Unlike more common battery-powered vehicles, electric vehicles, fuel cell vehicles don't need to be plugged in, and current models all exceed 300 miles of range on a full tank. They are filled up with a nozzle almost as quickly as traditional gas and diesel vehicles. While fuel cell vehicles themselves only emit water vapor from their tailpipes, the Union of Concerned Scientists notes that producing hydrogen can lead to pollution. Though renewable sources of hydrogen, such as agriculture and waste sites, are increasing, the majority of the hydrogen source for fuel comes from the traditional natural gas extraction. Still, the impact is still less than gasoline powered counterparts. Hydrogen powered Hydrogen power has been on the market for years, but in an extremely limited capacity. There are currently 39 public hydrogen fueling stations in California, with another 25 in development, along with a couple in Hawaii. Now the East Coast is getting its own infrastructure. A handful of stations are up and running, and more are in the works in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Hydrogen is more established in the commercial market. There are more than 23,000 fuel cell powered forklifts in operation at warehouses and distribution centers across the United States in more than 40 in the US in more than 40 states, including Amazon and Walmart facilities. There are dozens of fuel cell buses use uh, in use or planned in Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Massachusetts, as well as California. Consumer hydrogen refueling stations are increasing throughout the world. Toyota and Honda are teaming up with government in Quebec to build hydrogen infrastructure in Montreal this year. And even oil-rich Saudi Arabia is getting its first station. Toyota, the world's second largest automaker, is the largest player in the U.S. consumer market for hydrogen fuel cell cars. It's it's Mirai, a Mirai, a hydrogen fuel cell family car, has found 5,000 buyers since it was introduced in the fall of 2015. Russ Coble, a spokesman in Toyota's Environmental and Advanced Technology Group, said the company expects sales to increase as more refueling stations open. Quote, Toyota has long maintained that hydrogen fuel cell technology could be a zero emission solution across a broad spectrum of vehicle types, he said. Toyota says the scalability of hydrogen fuel cell technology also has led to two applications for California feasibility studies in another area of interest to Tesla, semi-trailer trucks. Honda has also made Honda also made a big commitment to hydrogen. There are currently nearly 1,100 Honda Clarity fuel cell vehicles on the road in the U.S., said Natalie uh, Krumerton, a Honda spokeswoman. Honda only offers the Clarity fuel cell in California for lease. It offers battery electric powered and hybrid versions of the car for sale or lease or sale. Out of the 20,174 total Clarities sold or leased in 2018, 624 were fuel cell variants, 948 were battery electrics, and 18,000 602 were plug-in hybrid. Honda and Toyota have teamed up with a subsidiary of Shell Oil to build new hydrogen fueling stations in California. Two have been built thus far, and are in the works. The company's the company is advocating for the stations in the northeastern United States, with several in development. Quote, partnering with other hydrogen fuel cell manufacturers and industry influencers make sense. We all have skin in the game, she said. Hyundai, which currently has 220 hydrogen fuel cell vehicles on the road in the U.S., also sees sales increasing. We expect the Northeast to be the next big region of hydrogen infrastructure growth, said Derek Joyce, a spokesman for the Korean Manufacturers Product and Advanced Powertrain Group. The company introduced the Nexo to the U.S. The EPA rates the midsize crossovers range up to 380 miles a gallon, longer than any battery-powered EV on the market. As of February 1st, just over 6,000 fuel cell vehicles had been sold and leased in the United States, double Japan, the next biggest market. As of February 1st, just over 6,000 fuel cell electric vehicles have been sold and leased in the U.S. Tesla co-founder CEO Elon Musk has dismissed hydrogen fuel cells as mind-bogglingly stupid, and that is not the only negative thing he has had to say about the technology. He has called them fool cells, loads of rubbish, and told Tesla's shareholders at an annual meeting years ago that success is simply not possible. Musk found a surprising source of support in 2017 when Tanaka, chief engineer in charge of Mirai, told Reuters, Elon Musk is right. It is better to charge the vehicle directly by plugging in. But the Toyota executive added that hydrogen is a viable alternative to gasoline. Toyota chairman Takeshi Uchimata told Reuters at the same Tokyo Auto Show in 2017, we don't really see an adversary zero-sum relationship between EV, which is battery-powered electric vehicle, and hydrogen car. We're not about to give up the hydrogen electric fuel cell technology at all. The auto industry as a whole has not embraced Musk's battery or bus vision for the future. A 2017 survey of 1,000 senior auto executives conducted by KPMG found they believe hydrogen fuel cells have a better long-term future than electric cars and will represent the real breakthrough, 78%, with the auto executives citing the short refueling time of just a few minutes as a major advantage. 62% told KPMG that infrastructure challenges will result in the battery power electric vehicle markets underdoing. In California, debate continues over whether the subsidies offered by the state to jumpstart the fuel cell market have paid back the investment as judged by the limited use of refueling stations and lack of profits. California is committed to the effort begun under former Governor Jerry Brown to fund renewable energy initiatives, which included a $900 million zero emissions vehicles plan and funding for electric vehicle and charging infrastructure, including 200 hydrogen stations by 2025. GM has not released a fuel cell vehicle for the consumer market, but it has a joint venture with Honda to produce fuel cell stacks at a Michigan plant, a deal that started in 2013 and expanded in 2017 when both companies said the Michigan plant where the fuel stacks are being made could produce vehicles starting in 2020. Ford has experimented with fuel cell variants in its Focus and Fusion cars as well as its Edge crossovers, but does not offer such vehicles for sale. Quote, with steadily growing share of renewable energies, hydrogen fuel cells could play a role in the future, said a Ford spokesperson. In terms of widespread market launch, however, the battery is currently in superior position to the fuel cell, not least because of the cost of situation and available infrastructure. Our work will continue to focus on electrification as we monitor hydrogen's progress. We have no current plans to offer hydrogen fuel vehicles. Fiat Chrysler does not have a fuel cell vehicle on sale in the US, but for 15 years it has supported research by Professor David Antonelli, the chair of physical chemistry at Lancaster University in the United Kingdom, that could bring costs down for the technology. His team is working with material that enables fuel tanks to be smaller, cheaper, and more energy dense than existing hydrogen fuel technologies as well as battery powered vehicles. The cost of manufacturing our material is so low and the energy density it can store is so much higher than the lithium ion battery, that we could see hydrogen fuel cell systems that cost 4 times less than lithium ion batteries, as well as providing a much longer range, said Antonelli. The technology has been licensed for a for profit company called Kubagan, set up by Antonelli. Safety is a concern as hydrogen is flammable, but so is gasoline and lithium ion batteries. The transportation of hydrogen for use at refueling stations poses additional safety risks. Stations use sensors to monitor for leaks. There have not been serious incidents reported in California, and the industrial sector has been transporting hydrogen for decades. According to the National Fire Protection Association, alternative fuel vehicles, a category that includes hydrogen fuel cell and battery powered electric, are not more hazardous than traditional internal combustion engines. The NFPA statistics reveal that approximately every 3 minutes there is a car fire in the US from an internal combustion engine vehicle. The biggest hurdle, however, may be cost. The average price for a hydrogen fuel cell or hydrogen fuel in California is about $16 per kilogram. Gasoline is sold by the gallon volume, and hydrogen by the kilogram weight. To put that in perspective, 1 gallon of gasoline has about the same amount of energy of 1 kilogram of hydrogen. Most fuel cell electric cars carry about 5 kilograms to 6 kilograms of hydrogen, but go twice the distance of a modern internal combustion engine car with the equivalent gas in the tank, which works out to a gasoline per gallon equivalent between $5 and $6. Hydrogen fuel cell cars now average between 312 miles and 380 miles in range, according to EPA. They will cost about $80 to refuel from empty. Most drivers don't let their tank run down to empty before they refuel, so end up refueling at a cost of $55 to $65. That cost is currently being paid for by automakers who provide leases with prepaid cards for 3 years of refueling, up to $15,000. In California, which has the nation's highest gas prices, filling up a conventional car with a large tank could cost $40 or more. Kelley Blue Book estimates annual fuel costs for the Toyota Mirai, Honda Clarity fuel cell, and Hyundai Nexo at $4,495, which is 3 to 4 times the cost of gas-powered alternatives. Quote, we recognize the automakers can't keep paying for fuel, and we see the line of sight to get there. But it is a volume game, and we need to hit a critical mass, said said Shane Steffens, principal and chief development officer at First Element Fuel, which runs 19 of the 39 hydrogen fueling stations in California and is developing 12 of the 25 additional stations for the state. His company near-term target is $10 a kilogram, which would equate to roughly $4 of gas, $4 a gallon of gas. That is a good near-term acceptable number to hit in the next 3 to 5 years and get people off automaker subsidized fuel. The biggest problem, the car remains expensive. Nexo, for instance, is the most expensive Hyundai on sale in the U.S. with a starting price of $59,000 and $59,345. Starting price for the brand new comparable size for Santa Fe is $24,000, $24,250. The Toyota Mirai and Honda Clarity fuel cell models have a similar MSRP in the $59,000 range. These cars purchase are eligible for government rebates. In California, there is a $5,000 rebate available. This is interesting because you would think that the big the tractor trailer trucks and so on and so forth would actually be the ones to adopt this sort of technology because there's so much capacity inside of one of these vehicles, or from a technology standpoint. They're the ones who are going to benefit the most. So trucks have a longer range anticipated for their duration. So it's not uncommon for a truck to have over 100,000 miles, whereas a car, you're lucky if it even makes that far, at least from a modern car perspective. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with this technology. I think it could really be utilized in things such as common rail trains, your Amtraks and your domestic, what we call commuter rails systems. Instead of using diesel, they could actually use one of these as a power source. I should say as an energy source as well. I noticed the key point in these articles that they're talking about is infrastructure, infrastructure, and more infrastructure. So move on to the next article. All right, next article is from Engadget.com. Nissan gives EV batteries a second life powering camper trailers. The batteries can power a trailer for a week. Actually, pretty slick. Pardon me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. Step away for a second. Once the batteries in electric cars are worn down beyond the point of being useful to the vehicle, something has to be done with them. Nissan has a novel solution that will help extend the life of the battery by repurposing it into a power source for camping trailers made by Opus. Nissan's battery recycling solution is made possible by a device that the company created called Roam. It's a small cube that is packed with the lithium ion battery cells pulled from first generation Nissan vehicles and can be hooked up to an Air Opus trailer. Roam can store up to 700 kilowatts an hour of electricity and offers 1 kilowatt an hour of electrical output, enough to power devices, small appliances, and the onboard lights and heating system in the trailer. Nissan claims that when the battery is combined with a 400-watt solar panel, it can be used. It can provide power to the trailer for a week without interruption. The battery can also be recharged in just 1 hour when plugged into a 230-volt power outlet. The Nissan Roam represents the possibility of portable power that wouldn't require campers to lug around a generator that requires gas or diesel. It also frees travelers from needing to set up shop at a campsite that has power hookups available. However, for the time being, the Roam a is just a proof of concept. While it shows off one possibility for repurposed batteries, the company hasn't announced any plans to mass produce the power pack. Interesting. That's a picture of the battery right there. I can see a lot of possibilities with these quote unquote tiny houses with these sort of batteries. So I definitely think there's a market for that. All right, this one is from NPR.com or .org. As more electric cars arrive, what's the future of gas-powered engines? Kind of just went over this a few articles ago with Elon Musk, but I'll reiterate it here. Most American automobiles are powered by internal combustion engines. Gas or diesel goes in tiny explosions, power pistons, and turn a crankshaft. As the car moves forward and carbon dioxide goes out. But a growing chorus environmental activists, business analysts, and auto executives are predicting a sea change as battery powered electric vehicles grow in popularity. Going electric is not an eco-friendly goal and ambition that would is not just an eco-friendly goal, an ambition that would help fight climate change. It's a business reality, according to industry analysts. But if the general path ahead is widely agreed upon, the speed of change and the role that combustion vehicles that will play during transition is far from clear. Electrification, you cannot stop it anymore. It's coming, says Elmer Cage, a managing director with the consulting firm Alix Partners. We have fantastic growth rates between 50 and 60% on a global level. Electric vehicles are currently a tiny fraction of the car market, which is dominated by internal combustion engines. But many more electric car models will hit showroom in the next few years. Several factors have analysts convinced that it is part of a major transition in the industry. Government policies, particularly in Europe and China, are giving a boost to electric vehicles as regulators not only the devastating consider not only the devastating impact of climate change, but also the value of improved air quality in cities. Auto companies around the world are gearing up for what will be a massive financial commitment. Car makers plan to invest more than $90 billion in the shift to electric vehicles over the next decade or so, according to Reuters analysis. Sorry. Electric motors are simpler, making them easier to maintain and meaning they should last longer. Keeping them charged is cheaper than buying gas, an advantage that will become even more significant if gas prices rise. Plus, they are fun to drive, says Tom Murphy, a managing editor at Ward's Auto, which ranks the world's best engines. They are enjoyable, they are quiet, and there's loads of torque, which means instant acceleration, he says. On the other hand, gas powered cars are cheaper to buy than electric vehicles. It's also quicker to fill up at the pump than it is to recharge. And the country is packed with gas stations, while charging station infrastructure is still in its infancy. But experts predict batteries will get cheaper. Charging will get cheaper. Charging will get quicker, and chargers will become more readily available. At some point, industry watchers say the balance will shift. Probably in the mid 2020s timeframe, it becomes comparable or cheaper to actually buy and operate an EV than internal combustion vehicle, says Sam Abusmed, an auto analyst with Navigant. Felipe Munoz, a global analyst at JADO, predicts electric vehicles will outsell conventional ones by 2030. Other analysts say the change could be slower, but most agree it's coming. Even people who love internal combustion engines see the writing on the wall. John Woods owns a 1972 Porsche 914. On a recent Sunday, he joined other car enthusiasts at a parking lot in Alexandria, Virginia, to rev his engine and grin at the sound of it. The internal combustion engine is, quote, the beginning of automotive engineering, Woods says, but the electric car will be the future. Combustion engines really aren't going anywhere for quite some time. The rise of electric vehicles, however, doesn't automatically mean the end of reign of the gas-powered car. Putting more battery-powered cars into circulation is only half of the equation. The next question is, what happens to all the combustion vehicles already on the road? One possibility is that they might get replaced quite quickly with electric vehicles. That's what that's what environmental activists want. For the sake of curbing climate change, for instance, the Green New Deal proposed by Democrats called for phasing out carbon emitting vehicles within a decade, which will require not only very fast production of electric vehicles, but also a sudden withdrawal of combustion vehicles from the roads. That's an ambitious target, but some version of that fast timeline could be triggered by very high gas prices or by bans of or restrictions on internal combustion vehicles, like some cities have discussed, at least hypothetically. It could also be motivated by consumer choice, arguing Dane Neal, automotive columnist at the Wall Street Journal. Electric vehicles, quote, are such better machines than machines they're replacing. He says the consumers might choose to retire their gas guzzlers long before the end of the vehicle's useful lives. Just like plasma TVs, he says a lot of plasma TVs didn't didn't see the useful end of their lives before they were replaced by much cheaper but also much better LCD screens. Others are far more skeptical of an accelerated timeline and anticipate the two types of vehicle will coexist on the road for a long time. The average age of a vehicle on the road today is almost 12 years old in the United States. Even if 100% of the vehicles sold were electric starting today, it would still take 20 to 25 years to replace the entire vehicle fleet with electric vehicles. Bill Visnick, editorial director at the Society of Automotive Engineers, is is more blunt. Combustion engines really aren't going anywhere for quite some time, he says. Increasingly eco-friendly combustion vehicles. Mary Nichols, who leads the California Resources Board, agrees that internal combustion engines aren't going away anytime soon. Quote, we can't turn them all into planters or sculptures, she says. So I think we're going to have to provide for them to continue to exist. But Nichols emphasizes that modern cars are cleaner than they used to be. Quote, I started working in this area of air pollution back in 1971, she says. And in that time, the air emissions from internal combustion engines have been slashed by over 90%, twice. That's important for air quality, a major concern in the world cities. Meanwhile, improved fuel efficiency has reduced the amount each car contributes to climate change. It highlights the importance of making sure that we continue to have standards for conventional vehicles that push us towards the more efficient, more cleaner combustion engines. In the next 5 years, we're going to sell an awful lot of gasoline and diesel powered vehicles, and not having those standards in place will lock in a large amount of emissions. And there's one last wrinkle when considering the future of combustion engine: the rise of the plug-in hybrid, which can run exclusively off battery power or use a combustion engine. It's not like the internal combustion engine is just going to. It's not like it's not like the internal combustion engine is just going to go away in the near future. Murphy of Wards. It's a little more nuanced than that. The transformation of the auto industry is real, experts say, and happened much faster than skeptics would have predicted just a few years ago. But the turnover of the fleet will take time, and the phase out combustion vehicles will likely be fast enough to satisfy environmental advocates concerned about global warming. We're moving to the right direction with electric cars, Right Move says. But the question is, how fast do we get there? And, if you look at what we're already seeing with climate change, we're going to have to move faster. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I think we've talked about this on past hangouts where these countries that signed up to the Paris um, climate agreement actually have phases or dates set, at least hard dates set, tentative dates set for the most part, where 2035, 2040, 2045, and 2050 is the expected decade for the decommissioning of gas and diesel, or shouldn't say diesel, but gas powered vehicles off the road. I think diesel powered vehicles are going to be off the road by 2030, but 2035, 2045 is that time frame where they're talking about gas powered engines just going away. And that sounds about right from a time perspective. From now until then, that's 20 years. So,
Hello, hello, hello. Hey, how you doing?
hey, what's going on, bro?
Not much, not much. So sorry, my bad. I
Chilling,
got
man.
here late. Just check my email.
All right. All right. Next article. All right. Next one is from Bloomberg.com. Canada's answer to Tesla is a $15,000 electric three-wheel vehicle. It's all electric like Tesla. It's priced like a Ford Fiesta. It's one of the oddest-looking vehicles you've ever seen, and it may just redefine the commuter car. As a General Motors company prepares for the shutdown for the shut there that's poorly written prepares to shut the plant near Toronto that got car making started in Canada more than a century ago. A new model is taking shape in a tiny production facility in Vancouver's outskirts. Meet the Solo, a one-seater vehicle made by Electric Vehicles Corporation that costs $15,500. By December, 5,000 will be zipping around the streets of Los Angeles, with an additional 70,000 to be delivered over the next 2 years across the West Coast. Electra may have a market value of just $140 million, yet it has $2.4 billion in pre-orders. The stock more than tripled in New York Wednesday. That's a picture of the vehicle for those watching in the chat. The particular three wheeler may even offer a lifeline to General Motors, Doom Oshawa, Ontario plant, which is set to close this year and put 3,000 people out of work. Quote, we have had some discussions around that, said Electra Chief Executive Officer Jerry Kroll, adding no decisions have been made. Nothing would make me happier than to rehire all those people with a Canadian designed engineering vehicle in Canada. Car makers from Tesla Incorporated to Nissan Motor Corp and Volkswagen AG are racing to make the car of the future. So far, they produce a cleaner, quieter, but, but costlier version of the ones already out there. Profitability has been elusive. Many manufacturers are likely losing money on each unit, but sell in pursuit of future market share. Electric says its quirky imagination of an automobile aims to redefine the category. Quote, Tesla is doing a good job on building big cars, conventional cars that are electric, says Kroll, who earlier worked on electric drive system for NASA in California and befriended the co-founders of Tesla, Mark Tarpenning and Martin Eberhard. Quote, the company is producing the car that Elon Musk wished he were building. Kroll said in a separate interview with Bloomberg Television. It is great to produce a $45,000, a $100,000 car, or a $250,000 car, but for the masses, a $15,000 car that can get them to stop using gas. That's creative. Leona Green, 64, and her son Matthew, 41, were the Solo's first customers and have been driving it for 2 years in Vancouver. They park it on the sidewalk in front of the deli they own for catering runs, and have ordered a second because they kept fighting over it. Interesting. That's the picture of the car right there. Quote, almost don't want everybody having one, she says. At least a few times a day, she passes out cards with sold specs, kept on hand to avoid answering the same questions repeatedly. So how does it perform? 0 to 60 miles, 97 kilometers per hour in 8 seconds, not far off a Porsche Cayenne. It charges in 3 hours. It has a 100-mile range and reaches a top speed of 82 miles per hour. Remark, excuse me. It can somehow hold the contents of a fully loaded Costco shopping cart in front and back storage nooks. Crow sees its soul doing for transport what smartphones did for computing. Something smaller, better, and utterly indispensable. The pushback was people thinking they needed a bigger screen, he said from the Vancouver office. But today everybody knows you sell a lot more iPhones and make a lot more money on each of them than you did on iMacs. This is true. Those lofty ambitions don't quite match for the company's share price. Electric soared in its first weeks of trading on the OTCQB venture market in 2017. At one point, hitting high of a $16 a share before moving to the Nasdaq late August. It's tumbled from its record, though soared 220% Wednesday to $4.33. That reflects some of the skepticism that's that sunk in about the prospects of what looks a bit more like glorified encapsulated tricycle. Yeah, this is it'd be interesting to see what happens with this because you're gonna say something like that?
Oh no, no, no. After you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. Mostly because people are very wary about micro cars. This works in Japan and it works in Southeast Asia, but it doesn't really work well in the United States because people are um, enamored by big vehicles. That's why SUVs are so popular because they're just big and they just have, Americans' culture is just based around everything just being massively big. McMansions and big gold chains and things of that nature. People are just enamored by big items and they equate small items with cheap. Um, in a car like this, people look at it and say, well, what happens if I get into an accident? Well, I ask in response, well, what happens if you get into an accident on a motorcycle? Don't you still get injured? What's the difference? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But as the economy starts to decline and people, struggle to hold on to big vehicles, this might work as a ride sharing option. I think as a car sharing option, I should say, as a car sharing option in terms of medium transportation or micro transportation for that matter, that could actually be um, a functional idea, very tangible. You have anything you want to add to this one, though?
Yeah, I agree with you when you saying that America's enamoration with large vehicles. We all know that the best-selling vehicle in America is the Ford F-150, big, huge truck, pickup truck at that. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw a proliferation of SUVs on the road where if you drive a lot of SUVs, crossover SUVs. Um, I also question if this were to be sold in America, the success rate of it because of our love of big things. Um, but what they did is is a is nothing to scoff at. They made something happen, an electric vehicle at a good price point. And I do agree with you. As the economy turns, people will. That's when people really think about uh, being frugal with their money.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one is from electric.com. Jaguar starts offering 0% financing on iPace to boost EV sales. This is a picture of the vehicle. It's an electric car.
That looks nice, real nice.
Yeah. The sales of the Jaguar I-Pace, the British automaker's first all-electric vehicle, haven't been strong in the U.S., but the automaker is now offering 0% financing on the I-Pace as a special limited offer to boost sales of the all-electric vehicle. Jaguar's I-Pace is seeing a slow ramp up. There are some European markets where the electric crossover is doing well, but it is slow overall. Last year, Jaguar delivered about 6,500 I-Pace SUVs in Europe during the first 9 months of sales of the all-electric vehicle. In the U.S., the vehicle only had a few months of sales in 2018, and Jaguar delivered about 400 units. 2019 started very slow for the I-Pace with only just 1,000 sales globally. At this point, it's still unclear if it's a problem of production constraints or if it's on the demand side. But Jaguar is introducing a new incentive to help demand in the U.S. Jaguar has announced that they are now offering 0% financing APR for 24 to 60 months on all versions of the I-Pace. Here's what they wrote about the offer. Quote, all new 2019 Jaguar I-Pace models eligible for financing at the APR shown for well-qualified buyers as determined by an approved lender. Payments per month per $1,000 finance, regardless of amount of down payment, can be as low as $16.67 at 0% for 60 months. All amounts shown are estimates. Retailer sets actual amounts. Suppliers are limited. Taxes and light, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ends on April 1st. The offer is running until the end of March, and it is dependent on the supply of Jaguar dealerships. You can check your local Jaguar for I-Pace inventory and inquiry about the deal. Electric's take. I am perplexed about Jaguar's I-Pace sales. I knew that production would be somewhat limited, but I thought it would be higher 6 months into production. In our electric review of the Jaguar I-Pace, we noted that the vehicle is still stunning, but it has some issues like charging efficiency in the user interface. Despite those issues, I think the I-Pace should sell relatively well based on its performance and design alone. I think it will be interesting to allow the sales of the I-Pace over the next few months, especially as new electric vehicles hit the market. I want to get a good look at it because I do think it's a rather common design that's really appreciated. So
Yes, it sounds like this is a way for people to look at this and say, well, 0% financing. When people normally buy cars, they have to pay uh, hefty tax on that. So much is going to the tax, so much is going to the car when they put in a monthly bill. And this is a option in terms of money, not having to pay so much
mhm,
on uh, taxes. The
mhm.
car looks nice. It's not a Prius or a Chevy Volt where you can look at it and say, "Well, that's an electric vehicle. It don't look nice. It don't look good." It destroys that common knowledge of electric. Other than Teslas, electric vehicles look homely and not appealing. Something you don't want to get caught riding in. This looks nice, especially the red color. I'm pretty sure they chose the red color for as the photo in the on purpose, but this looks really nice.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's for qualified people who qualify. So we covered an article maybe about a week or so ago about people under 30 years old having their cars repossessed after 90 days. I'd be curious to know how this works out for Jaguar, because sales are slow because people can't afford these cars.
You got a point. That's a good point.
TeslaRotty.com. Tesla's pickup truck and Rivian's R1T can topple the mighty Ford F-150. Just a picture of the two vehicles. The mighty Ford F-150 might see a legitimate challenge in the near future, and the veteran automaker if the veteran automaker neglects to prepare adequately for the arrival of two all-electric pickup trucks on the market, the Tesla truck and the Rivian R1T. The disruption of battery-powered pickup trucks was highlighted in a note from Morgan Stanley analyst Adam Jonas on Thursday. Addressing the firm's investors, the analyst stated that an electric pickup successfully launched by a new player like Tesla or Rivian could be a serious problem for Detroit-based traditional automakers. With the arrival of compelling vehicles, Jonas noted that experienced car makers like Ford could lose the opportunity to gain a first mover advantage in the electric pickup market. That's a picture of the actual Rivian pickup truck. The Wall Street points hit the nail on the head, considering that the innate characteristics of electric vehicles, such as instant torque and generous towing capacity, are factors that are vital to the pickup truck market. The Rivian R1T, for example, is listed with a towing capacity of 11,000 pounds, though CEO RJ Scaridge noted in a recent interview that the truck could tow far beyond its official rating. Thanks to the R1T's four electric motors, the truck is also able to hit 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. The Tesla truck, on the other hand, has been mentioned several times by Elon Musk in recent months. Last year, Musk held a Twitter brainstorm session with his social media followers to list down features that are important to pickup truck owners. By the end of the session, Musk noted that the Tesla truck would have 2 electric motors and dynamic suspension, a range of 400 to 500 miles per charge, 4-wheel steering, a 240-volt connection for heavy-duty tools, and even air compressor to run other equipment. Musk also noted that the vehicle could tow as much as 300,000 pounds. I don't know if that's right, though.
That's like a ton and a quarter. 300,000 pounds.
A ton and a quarter?
Well, not literally a quarter, but a ton is like 2,000 pounds. So let's say a ton and a half.
Yeah, but it says can tow as much as 300,000. I think that might be an error, because
Okay.
300,000 is a lot of weight. That's like a cruise ship.
Yeah, it's like yeah. It may be a typo.
That's the weight of a Corvette. Yeah, that's got to be he must be talking about 3,000 pounds or something like, or 30,000 pounds. Sorry, it's
Yeah.
one extra zero. But yeah, 'cause that's a lot of weight. It doesn't look good though. I can tell you that much. Doesn't look anything like the Rivian's R1T. That looks more like a traditional pickup truck.
I like the Rivian.
Yeah, it looks very plasticky.
I can give you that.
Mhm. All right, we'll get to our last one. All right, this one is from BBC.com. Formula E Mexico City E Prix is the fourth race of 2018-2019 season and will test the drivers. I just want to get a good look at the pictures because I very fascinated by these vehicles. I'll read the first paragraphs. Great Britain's Sam Bird, who finished second in the championship last season, leads the standings, having finished third in round two of Monaco before a victory last time out in Chile. With temperatures reaching around 45 degrees Celsius on track in Santiago, Bird kept his cool to win the third of 13 races in the 2018-2019 campaign. The Envision version racing driver finished ahead of former Formula One driver Pascal Wehrlein, with Germany's Daniel Abt inheriting third after Britain's Alexander Sims was bumped down to seventh because of a time penalty for causing a collision with Eduardo Mortara. Quote: the team put in an amazing effort at the last race in Chile for us to come away with the win. But we're barely a quarter mile of the way through the season, so we must be pragmatic and take each race as it comes. For me, Mexico E-Prix has previously brought mixed results, so we'll have to see. As always, we'll give out our all and aim to come away with a good points haul. This is I mean, you got to really watch the race to really get a good idea of what's going on because these cars are really fast and they're very quiet.
Have you
Although
ever
they make a distinctive noise. But
have you ever been to a Formula E racing, or been inside a Formula E, not a E, but a Formula car, a Formula One racing car, or been to an event?
I personally have not. This is a relatively new class, but I've only been to different kinds of races like NASCAR and stuff like that. But this is something I've been wanting to get out to. We were supposed to have Indy in Boston, but that got shut down by the residents because of quote unquote not in my backyard. They didn't want the noise, even though they're not going to be there that time during the day. But definitely something I've been wanting to get out to. It's on my list of things to do within the year.
Cool. Now the NASCAR racing, how was that? I've never been to. That's not a sport for me.
I'm not a big yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm saying that's not a sport for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I'm not a big fan of an oval. I get the purpose of it, but I'm just not a big fan of that. I like the Formula E, Formula One, Indy, because I like the twists and the turns and you know the uh, the open cockpit that they use. I think that's a really cool thing to have. I'm also a big fan of BTCC, so British Touring Car Circuit. I think that's really good too.
Okay. Yeah, I never. I think maybe once I tried, I couldn't get into that NASCAR. Now I agree with the Formula One. It's more adventurous for me looking at it because it's not going around in a circle over and over and over and over again. I don't see. I understand racing. I'm fine with racing, but that going around in a circle, I don't know about that.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Formula One, I don't watch it, but I still appreciate that more Then in NASCAR, yeah, they got the Monaco. Correct if I'm getting this wrong. Monaco. They got the one in Dubai and other circuits out there. I think that's more fun than NASCAR.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, this is the one that's on the docket originally. It's from Drago, basically MIT Self-Driving Car Summit, uh, and this is one of the principal scientists of Waymo. And I talked about this in the beginning, but because you just came on, I'm just going to reiterate. This presentation is almost like getting a nano degree in an hour. There's so much knowledge that comes from that he's given out in this one presentation. It's amazing. If you just have like a pen and pad or however you take notes and you pay attention, this will give you a soup to nuts um, demonstration of what goes into autonomous vehicles and autonomous driving um, in modern day. So it's an excellent breakdown.
Awesome, awesome.
Mhm.
And the video's what, an hour, about an hour long?
It's an hour long.
Okay, okay. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I just checked my email a while ago. But the Rivian, I like the Rivian. I'll give it. It does look plastically. I can't deny that. Like a nice matte black wrap or a matte wrap on it will make it look really nice. But then, you spend extra money to make it not look plastically. The breakdown when we went over the video of the it's what it all can do, its practical uses and so forth. I like it. Um, it's assembled in Illinois, I think. Like parts made in Michigan, assembled in Illinois. It's American made for sure. But I do like the Rivian. I do like the Rivian.
Hmm.
And I just sent out
Yeah, I.
a video saying that um, like Amazon GM. Yeah, Amazon GM. It was a Rivian Amazon GM deal. It's a YouTube video. It's about a couple minutes long though.
Mhm. Yeah, we won't play it on here because I don't want
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happened before to happen again. But yeah, I saw that video. I saw that article. I think or that blurb pop up in my inbox. But I think what's going to happen is that Ford has been asked last year about an electric or a hybrid F-150, and they said, "Oh, it's not in the works. It's not in the works. Not viable market." And I'm scratching my head. I'm saying, well, how do you explain Tesla and how do you explain Rivian? Because if they're coming out with something, why aren't you? But maybe they have something they just don't want to talk about it right now. But to deny that it's not a viable market, I don't know, man. I would have to disagree with that. I think that it's a viable market, but they just don't seem to have the wherewithal. They have a vested interest in keeping gasoline engines in their vehicles because it's probably the go-to powertrain for them, but they don't have a actual viable electric powertrain for that F-150, so they're probably just brushing it off. But hybrid, um, a hybrid vehicle would actually do wonders for their brand.
Now let's say they did have a hybrid or fully electric vehicle Ford F-150 pickup type. Maybe not a full F-150, maybe a smaller version, but a pickup. And let's say Tesla announced or even said that this is a deadline we want to come out with this pickup. Would that, because of Tesla coming out with it, with something like that? Because to me, only Tesla in their lineup is a pickup truck. If Tesla coming out with a pickup, with that boost a Ford hybrid slash electric vehicle?
With that boost, you,
Yeah,
you kind
because
of broke up.
because of that competition.
It's two different markets. People who buy Teslas are a completely different dynamic of who buys Ford, right? Ford does a lot of commercial sales to state governments and whatnot. So your highway maintenance crews, your construction companies, your utility companies, public water and sewage. They buy a lot of those vehicles because they're durable. But I don't foresee a utility company or a contractor company picking up a Tesla. There's just there's no general justification for that outside of the idea of saying we have a Tesla vehicle, but there's no real justification for it. So there's no the markets are different. Ford already has customers for the F-150. They don't. Tesla doesn't really have that. So therefore, their customers are really dependent upon wooing in these not so much as off road. I mean, the most off road that a Tesla, a person buying a Tesla pickup would have is like a mall parking lot, right? They'll go to like Home Depot and throw some lumber in the back or some mulch or something like that. That's about it. But they're not. They're two different customers.
Okay, gotcha. But it it does seem logical that Ford should come out with either a hybrid or a fully electric vehicle pickup truck.
They should do something with the F-150. It's their best-selling pickup truck. So I'm not sure why there's so much hesitation as to because if you really look at the chassis of a F-150, you could easily squeeze some batteries in between the back seat and the cab itself, right, and or the bed itself. That you can actually put your batteries there, and it would be evenly balanced, and it wouldn't really affect anything. However, they see the market somewhat different. I assume that they have different ambitions, but how do you? I guess the vehicle is so cheap, and as it stands right now on display, you would have to double the price of that F-150 if it was an electric vehicle because I think the F-150 is probably like 30 grand now or 25 grand or something like that. That means you would have to turn the price up to $60,000 for the same car for the same vehicle without measurable gains. There's no way to really quantify the measurement, especially for people who just need a pickup truck to do their carpentry work or their construction work, to get from point A to point B. They're not really thinking about the environment. They're the last ones to think about the environment, if anything.
Now, just looking at an electric F-150 and with the batteries in the chassis, that would increase the crumple zone in the front because that whole front end would be more space. You can initially have a trunk, not initially, but you can potentially have a trunk in the front because now the engine is gone. You can store space, just like the Tesla. You can store things in the space of the hood, and you have still the pickup, the bed in the back, and while it being an electric vehicle. Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the electric vehicles tow? The towing capacity is higher than gas vehicles.
It depends on the chassis too. Um, it's dependent on quite a few things, but transmission is usually the first thing. But the thing about the F-150 is that I don't think it could ever be a F-150 electric, right? Without being renamed something else. Yeah, you could remove the engine, and turn it into a what they call a front trunk. But typically, you want to put you need to put all your batteries and whatnot in the front too, all your electric components in the front because there's no other place to put it. The reason
Okay.
why the Tesla is the reason why the Tesla see the Tesla and the Rivian is actually different. The Rivian has the motors on the wheels, whereas the Tesla uses two different motors, one in the front, one in the back. Um, in between the axle. So there's a difference in how it's designed. So it's there's some flexibility with the Rivian, but not so much with the Tesla. Um, and plus, people who want to put stuff in the trunk on a pickup truck, they usually just put it inside the bed, anyways, right? They just get a tonneau cover and then just cover the back.
Yeah, yeah. Just thinking about it, it does sound nice. Just thinking about it, electric Ford
Hmm.
F-150, it does sound nice. I'm sure. I'm sure a major car manufacturer is going to come up. If not, have already. Cars not really not my forte. Have already come out or will be coming out soon with the all electric pickup truck.
Yeah, I think when we've covered pretty much. Covered pretty much everything for tonight that I wanted to cover. Um, so I think what I'll do is I'll shut it down, and then hopefully we'll see you next time around because I can't guarantee when we're going to be coming back. So all
Yeah, right.
right, thank you all for joining us, and have a good one.